Have you ever felt like your job is thriving, but you're barely surviving? You're hitting all your career goals, promotions, profits, progress. But beneath the surface, you feel drained, disconnected, and distant from yourself. Here's a radical truth. The key to achieving true, lasting greatness isn't in grinding harder or scaling faster. It's in shifting your focus to something we often overlook. You. Yes, you matter more than your work. We live in a culture that glorifies hustle. We're taught to pour nearly all of our time, energy, and attention into our jobs, businesses, and side hustles. If, and that's a big if, there's any time left, maybe we consider taking care of ourselves. But this approach is backwards. When you neglect yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, everything else begins to erode. Burnout, disconnection, anxiety, and emptiness aren't just side effects of success. They're warning signs that something essential has been abandoned. Let's challenge that model. Let's reimagine success through a powerful visual, the balance quadrant. On one axis is self. On the other is work. Your job, your business, your career, your contribution to the world. And the ideal ratio. It's not 50-50. It's not 30-70. And it's definitely not 10-90 like most people are living today. The ideal ratio is 60% self, 40% work. Now, I know that might sound counterintuitive. But when you take the time to invest 60% of your energy into your whole self, your mental clarity, your physical vitality, your emotional stability, and your spiritual grounding, something profound happens. You unlock your full potential. You bring your best self to the 40% you pour into work. That 40% becomes focused, powerful, creative, efficient, and magnetic. It's no longer about doing more, it's about being more. Think about it. How many brilliant ideas never see the light of day because the person who had them was too exhausted to act? How many opportunities are missed because burnout blinded the moment? When you prioritize self, you maximize the return on everything else. You become sharper, more aligned, more intentional, and as a result, more impactful. Let's layer in a second model that reveals even more: the age versus productivity curve. Traditional thinking assumes that productivity rises through your 30s and 40s, peaks in your 50s, then slowly declines. But that's only true for those who neglect the self. For those who prioritize holistic self-care, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, the curve tells a different story. Yes, there's a productivity peak early on, often followed by a dip as life gets more complex. But instead of continuing to decline, the curve rises again, this time more powerfully, in your 50s, 60s, even 70s. Why? Because when self is nourished, wisdom is retained, clarity is deepened, and purpose is refined. You don't just live longer, you live wiser, and your contribution compounds. That's what I call the second wave of greatness. But this rise isn't automatic. It only happens if you've made consistent deposits into your self account. If not, that curve flattens, and what could have been your most meaningful legacy-defining years become years of regret and recovery. Everything changes when you become conscious in the moment, when you stop living on autopilot and start asking yourself, am I honoring my whole being? Am I edifying not just my schedule, but my soul? You must build a life that fuels the body, nourishes the soul, and awakens the spirit. That means moving your body with purpose, feeding your mind with truth, sitting in stillness, embracing gratitude, and making space for joy, peace, and reflection. Greatness is not a destination. It's the quality of your presence in this very moment. It's how fully you show up for your own life. When you are grounded, aligned, and whole, your work is not just successful, it becomes sacred. So here's the challenge. Grab a sheet of paper. Draw a simple quadrant. On one side, write self. On the other, work. Reflect on your past week. What percentage of your time and energy went into each? Be honest. Then look at your next week. Adjust your schedule to reflect the 60% self, 40% work model. Start small if you have to. But start now. If your life were a bank, what are you depositing into your self account? Because you cannot withdraw greatness from an empty soul. If this message stirred something in you, don't scroll past it. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Talk about it. Let's create a movement where wealth isn't just measured in money, but in wholeness, clarity, and sustained impact. Subscribe to Wealth Not Riches for real financial talk that builds your foundation, not fantasy. Wealth Warriors. Follow us at Wealth Not Riches 1 on Instagram, at Wealth Not Riches on YouTube, at Wealth Not RX on X.